now. Good. All righty. Sorry for the delay, guys. Let's see. Okay. Okay, do y'all see the screen that's armless that says Quick CMA?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Here's how I do, I pull comps. So first thing I do is I go into MLS, forget this screen for now, and I click on Monsoon. I go to Monsoon. Obviously, this is going to apply primarily for the Arizona people. And I type in the address of the property. Braden is going to recognize this address. This is a potential future listing of his, 4601 East Rains Road in Gilbert. And I pull this up and I look at the public record, and I'm going to reference it a lot. So first thing I do is I print it out. I print out this whole page, set it on my desk so I can reference it as I'm going through the rest of the pulling of comps. And then I do a real quick comp right here. I don't know if you all are familiar with this. You've got tax, MLS, and right there comp, which I'd already clicked. And I did just a quick comp. I said I had it defaulted. These things here default to whatever you used the last time, located within 3/4 of a mile. I'm ignoring lot square footage, same number of stories, very important in my opinion. If you're working with a single family or a single story house, you want to comp it with only single level houses, because there's a huge difference sometimes between the value of a 2-story versus a single story. Same parking spaces, pool, same as subjects, sold in last 6 months, building square feet, plus or minus 10%. We'll talk about that more in a minute, but within 10 years. And real quickly, I do this mainly because I want to get an idea where I'm at. I want to see what ballpark I'm in. As you can see, the value by price per square foot here says an average of $537, a high of $659, big range. But now I've ballparked where I need to be. This is not what I'm going to use for my comps. I'm not going to give this to the seller. What I'm going to do is going to go to Armless, and I created this saved search called Quick CMA, and I can send you guys, anybody that doesn't have this, I can send this to you. So you've got this template to work from and you can customize it for yourself. And all it is, I'm going to go to Edit Search. And this is the search criteria that I created in my Quick CMA, which is where I start all my comps at. And as you can see, that's my neighborhood. That's the neighborhood I live in, Fountain of the Sun. The only reason I have that subdivision in there is because if I didn't put a subdivision in there, you'd get 10, 15, 20,000 results, and it would slow things down. So I did that just so I can get that manageable. Now you'll notice these first 4 selections up here: interior levels between 1 and 3, carport spaces 0 and 5, garage spaces 0 and 5, and then property description not on golf course. The reason that I have those values in there is because there's a quirk in MLS that some search criteria will not come back the next time you pull out you bring a save search back open, and it'll drop some of these search fields if they don't have a quantity in there. So I created a quantity that covers just about everything. So I'm not going to miss any properties. And I specifically have golf course in there because we work a lot in this community here, which has a golf course. So we deal a lot with golf course versus non-golf course lots. So I'm going to go and show you how I go through this, but I'm going to try to save time and go to, there it is right here. Okay. This is I saved this search after I filled in the quantities here. Interior levels, notice I said between 1 and 1. I'm working with a single story home. I want to compare it only to other single story homes. Carport spaces, don't need to do anything there because there aren't any. Garage spaces, this is a 3-car garage home. So I put in 3 to 3. Ideally, you want to compare apples and apples. That's the goal for every CMA, is every comp should be an apple versus apple. This property does have a pool, so I did include a private pool. That just happens to be that quantity not on golf course that was already in there. Don't have to mess with that because the property's not on a golf course. And then in this here, I've got this defaulted close of escrow date 180 days back. That's the only value I put in there. And as you can see, I've included active UCB, contingent, coming soons, pending, and close. Notice I do not include, at least in this market, expired, temporarily off market, and canceled. I personally don't think we need to go there generally, but that doesn't prevent you from pulling them up and sharing them with the seller that's trying to go way overpriced. Okay, and then I made sure I was searching for single family detached. I don't usually mess with bedrooms. It's pretty rare unless I'm going to use bedrooms to narrow it down from a large quantity of comps to a smaller, more manageable quantity. And then what this is, the subject property has 3,192 square feet. And these two numbers represent 10% below and 10% above. Remember what we saw on that here, plus or minus 10% over in Monsoon. I'm going to start with that. Ideally, your best comps are going to be within 10% of the subject property's square footage. And here I put in year built, 10 years back, 10 years forward. The home was built in 2003. And I don't necessarily, in most searches, I don't need to use that because especially if I'm searching in a subdivision that I'm familiar with, and this happens to be one. This is a subdivision of Power Ranch. I'm gonna also, what's up here? That's not it. Or that shouldn't even be there. I don't know why I'm not. Okay, another thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go, and I kind of skip this, back when I do the Monsoon and I print that out, I also go in and pull up any previous listings of the subject property. And it was listed and closed a while back. I'm gonna open that up. I'll print this usually so it's on my desk, my physical desktop, so I can reference it. And there's something really interesting about this that you wanna always watch for. I always look at what a previous listing said the square footage was. It says 3,192. But in public record, it says the square footage, going to go back to Monsoon here, not MLS, tax records. Sorry about that. Try this again, tax records. And notice the square footage here says 3,136 square feet, but the previous listing says 3,192. I'd kind of like to get to the bottom of that. That's not a huge difference, but it'd be interesting to know what's going on there. And so to try to figure out what's going on there also, and also to get familiar with the listing, I'm going to go to the public remarks here and look at the features that they're talking about. And notice this here, more button. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this, but you can add a lot more than the number of characters. I think it's 800 in public remarks. You can add quite a bit more, but for the agent or buyer to read it, they've got to click on that button and look for more. And look what I found down here. The Cabrera model was built with an extended family room option to bring the total square footage from 3,136 to approximately 3,192. And it goes on to talk about the upgrades and such like that. Good information to know. Now the absolute ideal when you're doing comps for a listing presentation is to go visit the property on a pre-listing presentation appointment and see the property, make notes, visually see what features and upgrades it has, because that will help you pin down the recommended list price you're going to give that seller. But I'm finding of late, that's pretty rare. We rarely go on a listing appointment and do a two appointment listing presentation. So I want to get as much information about the property as I can. This was sold back in 2017. That property could be a lot different today. You just don't know. So just want to point that out. So I'm going to go back to the CMA. Where am I at here? Okay, normally I would go in here. If I weren't familiar with a neighborhood, the first thing I would do is do a radius search. Our subject property sits right there. Let's see, why does that have that tab over my screen? I'm gonna reduce this just a bit so I can see more. Okay, our subject property sits right there, and I determined that either in Google Maps or in the previous listing. I normally go in here, get the circle down here, and draw a 1 mile radius circle, and that's how I search for comps. So I'm looking this whole area. If I was not familiar with the neighborhood of Power Ranch, which I happen to be, relatively familiar with it, that's where I would start. But obviously, a subject or a comp inside the same subdivision is going to be much, much better than one outside the subdivision, unless you just can't find something in the subdivision. So that's what I would normally do. But since I knew the subdivision pretty well, I did not do that. So I'm going to do this here. And the other thing too, if I drew that circle and it included all these out here, those will disappear shortly. That's going to bring me into this subdivision right here. That's called Trilogy. I happen to know that that's a 55+ community. I recommend you don't ever use comps from a 55+ community if you're comping out a property that's not in a 55+ community. Remember, apples and apples. In fact, I can't even think of a single instance where you'd ever do that. Unless you're just absolutely starved for comps. Alrighty, so as you can see, when I did the 10% below at 2850 and 10% above at 3520, I only got 4 comps. And that's not a bad thing. I don't think it's a bad thing. I think we can overwhelm our seller clients by bringing too many comps. And not only that, it creates confusion both in the seller's mind and sometimes in your own mind if there are too many comps out there if you use it. But I thought, well, let's see, what if we go to 15%? I've already done this calculation, so I'm going to stretch it to 2,700. I'm rounding a little bit here to 3680. So I change that so I get a little more to work with and see what happens. Notice it just changed to 5. So, and they're all 1, 2, 3, 4. It hasn't filled in yet, I don't think. There they are right there, 4, 5. And they're all sold properties. Now we don't have any actives or pendings to compare to, so just to get that information and have it available for me to sort through, I thought, well, let's try loosening up the parameters again. I did include properties only with a pool. So let's see if there's some properties that don't have a private pool that might be good comps to use. And let's see what happens. It just went to 7, as you can see right there. And then let's see, okay. So we've got the 2 comps that were added were that one right there, which is, gosh, really close to our subject, which happens to be right there. And this, I can't remember the color. I'm colorblind. Is that active or pending? Does anybody know what that color? Active or UCB?
It looks pending. It's yellow.
Yellow is pending? Thank you, Joshua. My color blindness stops me sometimes. So the other thing that I did here, you might notice that because it's important in my mind to use comps from the same neighborhood if available, notice what I did here. I used the, what's that called, Polygon Tool, and I drew out what I know is the neighborhood of Power Ranch. So I'm searching only in there. When I started, I had gone to the subdivision name. Where is it at? Subdivision. And I'd had my subdivision there, but I had changed that and just typed in Power Ranch. And it brought me to this area. Then I drew the circle and took out the word Power Ranch from the subdivision. Very specific reason I do that. The subdivision field is something that the agents frequently type in themselves, and there's a good possibility of a misspelling. So I want to make sure that I'm using the map function for properties that are inside that neighborhood that might be excluded if they didn't spell Power Ranch correctly. That makes sense? Okay, so here's what I do now. Where am I at here? I got all that down. So what I do is I go into the list. And now this is all done, you know, as I'm preparing for my listing appointment. We've got 7 properties, and I'm going to go through them one by one and see what's going on. This is interesting. This one on Ranger Court, it's a pending, and that's really close. And look at that, 3136. You guys remember what the original square footage of from the builder was and on the previous listing or on the tax records? And the agent and the remarks said, no, it's a little bit bigger. This is probably the same floor plan. That number is way lower than I would expect it to be. Let's find out why. Because remember when we went to the monsoon and we went to comps, we got a number in the 537 range as the average based on price per square foot. So I'm thinking there might be something wrong with this, fixer-upper possibly. Let's start by looking at the map. Because one of these was back to a busy street, that one there. And this one actually looks like probably a good location.
Backs up to commercial.
What's that?
It looks like it backs up to a commercial lot.
Yeah, I'm noticing that now. And this is one of my favorite things to do when I'm trying to familiarize with the comps and their location. I go up to actions for selected listings and show bird's eye view all the time. There you go. Oh, look at that. It's a water storage tank of sorts. There's that comp right there. Do you guys think that that's going to be a negative to that property versus one that's on an interior lot? I think so. So let's look at the photos. This is another thing I do. I go through the photos and I go through every single listing. I look at the photos and try to get a feel for what the home is like, what kind of upgrades it has. Usually do it, kitchens and baths are where you're going to find that, and rear yard landscaping and such. Let's see if there's a kitchen in this house. Okay. I don't know. It looks like pretty basic cabinets, kind of builder grade cabinets. That's how I would describe them. I'm pretty sure that's granite countertops. It looks like tile throughout, maybe everywhere but the bedrooms.
Did you say builder grade cabinets?
Yeah, base cabinets for that builder. This has to be a Toll Brothers home. Toll Brothers is, in my opinion, a bit of a higher end builder than a lot of tract builders out there. They do a lot of semi-custom stuff, just information I just happen to know about them. And this looks to me like probably the base cabinet that they offered in that property when it was built. That's just.
Thanks, Mark.
And builder grade is a term that's used in the construction business for the most basic of cabinets and other materials and fixtures that go in a house. So let's see if there's a bathroom somewhere in this house. We got black.
Mark?
What's that?
Mark, when you get a chance, can you show me where to go for the bird's eye view?
Sure.
When you're done.
Absolutely. Okay, here we go. The same, these are not highly upgraded cabinets in my opinion. And you don't have granite back here. You've got cultured marble. There's a nice shower surround. Semi-custom closet. Real basic bathroom. And backyard, not exactly impressive. And no pool. Okay. And
Mark, are these pictures of the last time it sold at that time? Or is this an active listing right now? I guess that would also change things. If this was the pictures, maybe they have updated since.
no, these are current pictures because I'm looking at the existing pending listings. It says pending right there. That's the pictures that are in the MLS right now that were there before this sold. So I'm getting an idea here that this is not, I mean, super basic backyard.
Mark,
Yeah.
see that view fence in the back, is that a negative because of where it backs up to then?
Well, actually, this view here, I look at it and I think, well, this might not be as bad as it looked from the aerial, the bird's eye view.
Elevation kind of covers the.
Yeah, they've got it's bermed up high and they've got a tile wall there. So you'll never know while in the backyard of this house that it backs up to that big storage tank.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, so let's get out of, let me go back to map and I'll show you real quickly. Anytime you're in map view in Armless, Lorraine and Tony, right here, actions for selected listings, you've got all these options right here. Show bird's eye map right there. And it opens a separate window and it goes, and that's actually in Bing. Bing is the bing.com/maps is where these come from. So, and then you can rotate somewhere here. There's a rotate button.
I guess now I'm looking at it and we saw the backyard. I'm like, well, that can actually be a better positive for me. I don't have a neighbor behind me, and
Yeah,
I don't.
no neighbor behind. Yeah, that's true. So as I'm looking at this now, after we've seen both views, I'm thinking this might be a wash. This is not going to be a super big positive necessarily, but it's not going to be a big negative. And this
Hey,
is
Mark,
where, yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but just to the southwest or southeast, right there, I mean, you're bordering a commercial zone there. I mean, is that, I mean, just because you can't see it, is it, do you consider that still? I mean,
you know, it's really hard to say how that's going to affect things. Keep in mind too, our market. If there were a half a dozen or more competing listings in this subdivision and you were about to list a home there, this is not nearly as big of a negative in today's buyer's mind as it would be if there was a lot of competition. So I would not give a lot of negative to that. The things I see that are negative about this house is that it's very basic, never really updated, or not originally high quality fixtures and cabinets and stuff, other than the shower surround in the master bath. Does that answer your question? Okay.
yep, sure does. Thank you.
So let's go back to, let's see, where am I at here? Okay, so that's that comp there. Let's go to the detail and see what we can learn about it there. Outstanding single level property, blah, blah, blah. 3-bedroom, 2-bath, black matching appliances, genuine master street you'll find, private exit and luxurious full bath with master tub. Obviously, it's not touting a lot of interesting stuff, but this is very telling right here. 382 days on market. 465 original list. Well, that's for this listing for 15 days. So when that tells me 382 days, that is cumulative days on market, CDOM. That tells me it was listed by somebody else for a long time before this agent got it. And if you wanted to investigate that, you could go up here to history and then look at this is our current listing pending, and then look at the history of a previous listing. So original list price, look at this, $539.9. That's what it was originally listed for. And then it eventually brought all the way down to $475. And that was just the month before this new listing happened, or probably a different agency. I didn't check, but I'm not sure that's a big factor. So that's this comp here, this pending comp, is actually kind of a negative as far as our seller's value is concerned, because it's so low. By the way, if you go into the monsoon, you can see, go into tax, and you can see what the sellers paid for it. They paid $475 for it in 2017, right there. Okay, so in this market, you don't want to go in, and you obviously don't want to go in and tell a seller that, oh yeah, we can sell your home for 10 grand less than you paid for it 3+ years ago. But one thing right off the bat is that our subject has a pool. So this is probably not a good comp for really comping out our subject. So let's go down here I'm going to go right down. We're into the solds now.
Mark, real quick.
Sure.
I mean, looking at the rest of that list, that 465 being on the market that long, that's kind of an anomaly, right? I mean,
It's an anomaly. Absolutely.
like someone must have smoked in that thing or something.
Yeah, it's hard to say, but I don't think it's representative of what we're going to be telling our seller by any stretch of the
You
imagination.
see something that stands out by itself like that, you kind of disregard it because there's something there.
Yeah. In fact, I would whittle this down. When I'm ready to go present this to my seller, I would take that out of there based on everything we've learned. I wouldn't even show it to my seller at this point. Okay. Okay. And then here we've got another one, 3411 square feet. So a couple hundred square feet bigger. And I think the picture is worth 1,000 words. So I go through the pictures and look at all my comps. Coffered ceiling, doesn't look like a super spectacular kitchen, but got some nice backsplash there. That thin granite counter there. I'm not a big fan of that personally. Separate tub and showers. Look like they've got a shower surround, tile shower surround in both bathrooms. Nice. Looks like the bathrooms were probably updated with this white antique stuff. Let's see what we got here. I don't see a pool, so it also does not have a pool. So based on what I'm seeing there, and at least at this point, based on the description I read about this property from the previous listing, I'm thinking our subject is probably quite a bit superior to this. Not just the pool, but probably the interior as well. By the way, where is it at here? 601 East Range, where's my, okay, here's our previous listing of the subject, which closed at 475 right there. I had done this earlier. I obviously wanted to look at the photos in that too, and lo and behold, only one photo. There are a lot of agents that do that. They pull all the photos. I'm sure there were more photos when this was listed. They pull everything down except the front view photo.
Hey, Mark, I would also call, because if it's if that last pending was low too, I would call and get, just like with this, what is the interior like? I would call the agent and say why.
Okay, and not a bad idea. Not a bad idea to call them. I would lean toward calling.
Is there a reason why, Mark, that they take the photos down?
You know, I'm not sure what the logic is, but I know some agents do. We have an agent that does a lot of business in our neighborhood where we farm, and we do a lot of business right here, and they always take it down. They always take the photos off, except for the front.
I had a buyer ask me to have the seller remove the photos once they close because they didn't want people to see where their home. So,
but it's not their home anymore.
Yeah. Well, the buyers, my buyers, right? They wanted the listing agent once they purchased.
Oh, the buyers. Okay.
Yeah, my buyers, not my sellers. My buyers. They moved in. They said, "Can you call that listing agent and have them take all the pictures?"
Yeah. But the one thing that we've got going for us is we're gonna eventually get to this house. We might have already had an appointment to go see the home, drop off a packet of information about ourselves that tells the seller all about how wonderful we are and why they should consider us, taken copious notes and gotten a real good idea what kind of upgrades and features it has. And this is a lot easier to do if you have done that. Tons easier, because when it's all said and done, you can go into the seller and you can have a recommended, I mean, really can be very confident about what range of price that you think the seller should list at. More often than not, we determine that range or that recommended list price at the listing appointment if we've never seen the inside of the subject property. So, okay, everything is titled the same thing, so I'm trying to find where it was. Here we go. So 514, here's one that's more optimistic, 579. And I think this one has a pool. Yeah, see it says P right there and the encoded features. So it has a pool. So let's look at the photos on that. I'm not going to go through all of these, but just give you an idea of what I look for. Oh, really nice entry. Looks like travertine tile courtyard entry. Very nice. It looks like it has a casita over here as well. Nice front door, nicely upgraded. Some what looks like hardwood floors. I don't know if it's laminate or hardwood, hard to tell. We could probably learn that from the description. And now if our subject property has similar upgrades to this is going to be a lot more apples and apples comp, I think, except for the difference in square footage. Look at the rock or maybe faux rock fascia there on the bar. Cabinets don't look too fancy. Well, they're just, what's the term for those cabinets, Mel? They call them?
Shaker.
Shaker, thank you. I was having a brain, you know what. Some nice upgraded appliances, a generic gas cooktop, and a really nice hood. So lots of upgrades. Double oven over here, of course. You know, all things to consider. Ooh, look at this, a little bar with a wine cooler, like a butler's pantry, probably. Really nice. Let's get to the bathrooms. Where's the cabinets in here? Same cabinets that were in there. They've got the cultured marble countertops, so no big upgrade there. Okay, and I'm just making a mental note of all this stuff at this point. Okay, there's the backyard. Really nice pool and Ramada area over there. You know, anybody built a pool lately? What would that cost to reproduce right now? 60 grand, something like that? I'm seeing nodding heads. Obviously, it's not going to have that much value in resale, but that's what it costs. More travertine back there.
A quote on a pool, a very, very, very basic pool, and it's $30,000.
Wow. It's been a long time. The only pool that I ever built cost me $15,000. So that was in 1999.
Well, that's what appraisers are giving it nowadays.
Yeah. Exactly. So this is a really nice backyard. A lot of value there. So there's where our 579 is coming from. And let's go back in. Let's just look at one more for the purposes of this and time allotted. Yeah, really nice backyard. I'm going to go to the list view. And one of the things you'll notice over here, our subject is not in here, but we know we've got 3,192 square feet. This is that one that's the same floor plan without the bonus space in the living room, the builder option. But by the way, I just remember it, and I can go up here, and our lot square footage is 10,000 square feet. Always something you want to kind of keep in mind. That's what tax record says our lot square footage is. Here, every single comp, with the exception of this one on carriage that we looked at previous to this one here, is fairly bigger. Look at this one here. This one's $640,000, 16,000 square foot lot, 3527, kind of at the top range. This is another one that I would likely yank and certainly not focus on for my seller. Quite a bit bigger home and a much, much larger lot, and 640,000. I'm getting the feeling right now that my subject's probably not going to be into the 600s at this point. I don't know if somebody disagrees with that. You know, chime in. But I might find that the home is fabulous when I get in there. And I wanted to point out one more thing. Where is it at here? Here we go. Look at this. This one is about 200 and some square feet smaller at 2,948 square feet. And it sold for $603,000, 12,671 square foot lot. So if you were making an adjustment for this based on square footage, you'd adjust up. You'd adjust that 603 up by quite a bit, the equivalent of the value of about 200 and, I thought I wrote that down, 240 or 50 square feet. Let's look at that as our last one we actually look at. It's a T.W. Lewis home, by the way. I didn't mention this earlier, but every comp in here is either a Toll Brothers home or a T.W. Lewis home. Obviously, if you're not familiar with the area, you're not going to know that they are both considered higher quality builders. They're kind of semi-custom. I know Toll Brothers definitely is. So we're comparing apples and apples, I think, as far as builder quality. Okay, let's go to the photos on this. Last one we're going to take a detailed look at. Okay, nice front landscaping. Nice kind of courtyard entry with pavers. That looks like genuine wood floor to me, more than likely. Let's just go through real quick. Let's see, let's get to kitchens. Oh, interesting. All that wood, all that natural wood and white cabinets. That doesn't appeal to me, but I'm the colorblind guy. Nice kitchen though, if you like the white stuff, and white's been popular the last, what, 5-10 years. Yeah, nice, really nice granite. So probably a relatively expensive granite. Another little pantry there. Shutters on the windows. I'm not a huge fan of shutters per se, but they're crazy expensive if you've never dealt with them before. So something to keep in mind. Okay, bathroom. Nothing super special. These look like base cabinets that the builder probably put in. That'd be my guess. And it looks like a cultured marble shower enclosure. I'm assuming this is the master. So not really heavily upgraded. Looks like we got some built-ins in the office. That's a nice touch. It's interesting. It's interesting that they did this to the guest bath, but nothing to the master bath. But that's kind of cool if you like that kind of look. The floor of our shower looks like that in our personal home, which we kind of like. And then some wainscoting, cotting, however it's pronounced. Okay, and relatively basic pool here with a waterfall. Here, nice fireplace outdoors and a barbecue thing. Okay, so nicely upgraded. But 603,000. Maybe I'm thinking now I'm starting to lean toward my subject being worth more than 6. What do you guys think? No comments?
I'd like to see the subject again real quick, Mark.
The picture
Yeah, me
of the
too.
subject?
Yeah.
Well, let's do this. Let's see. That's the
Knowing
only
the
picture we
site of
have.
the property,
We don't have a
actually
picture of the
more
subject, right?
upgraded than these ones.
Okay. What was that, Braden?
We don't have a picture of the subject inside, right?
No, we have no pictures of the subject inside. Braden in our group knows this house, I'm sure, Braden.
I know this house really well, and this house is actually way more upgraded than a lot of the ones that we've seen.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, now see, Braden knows it because he personally knows these people, and it's a potential listing for him in the near future. Not right away, probably, but he's been in the home a lot, I would imagine. So that's exceptionally good information to have, because otherwise you're going to go in there and say, okay, here's what the average price is selling for right here. Here's what the most upgraded are selling for over here. Let me get on the, and then let me do it this way. Upgraded ones are selling up here, and the more basic ones are selling down here. That's usually the explanation, more often than not, of the real high ones and the real low ones, and the lowest ones on price per square foot. So, Braden, real quickly, can you share a couple of things about this subject that that you think are superior to other things we've seen?
The kitchen in this house is actually, it has really nice dark wood cabinets in the kitchen, along with the kitchen island. It has a built-in trash compactor in the island, and it also has the wine fridge in the island.
Okay.
The master bedroom, the bathroom is upgraded in there. It does have the solar panels. What else?
Is that a solar water heater, or is that
Solar panels. I know that from looking at the. I think it is. Isn't it, Braden? Solar panels for electricity
Right.
versus hot water.
Yeah, electricity.
do you know much about the lease? I mean, that's something that you really want to take into consideration too.
I'd have to double check
Yeah.
with them. I don't know if they own it outright or if it's leased, so I'd have to double check with that.
Right, and we might be able to learn that from, if I can get to the listing. Okay, go to the details. They also see. Does anybody see solar panels in there? Well, actually, where are the solar panels listed? Usually down here, leased solar panels. Does anybody remember? If it's
Yeah.
It says ownership right there.
On the right, it says solar panels, ownership owned, KW5.
Okay, I'm not seeing where it's at, but I'll take your word for it. So that means these solar panels are going to probably add some value to the home because they're owned. If you've never dealt with solar panels before, I think the leased ones have more of a negative effect than a positive effect because it's a royal pain in the butt to go through the whole lease transfer process. We just did that with a client of ours. We sold the home 2.5 years ago, and we sold it for them just a couple months ago.
And some of the leases are ugly, ugly leases.
They're ugly. Okay, with that in mind, time is limited here. So I'm not gonna come to a conclusion here in this session, I don't think, as to what the value is gonna be, but everything I'm seeing and hearing from Braden, since he knows the property, I'm thinking we're gonna be in the 6s. Does anybody have a different opinion to that?
Sounds right to me.
And it also has a den, and the cabinetry in there is immaculate and upgraded, and also dark wood.
Okay, so it sounds like more like this one here, the much smaller one that we were looking at, 250 square feet smaller, that sold for 603. I don't remember it, but it had a pool, right? Yeah, it had a pool. So heck, this 640 range, I think, is in reach here.
I have a question about that one that just sold for the 603, or I think that whatever that price point was. Does it matter how long ago it sold? When did it sell? Does that take a poll on it?
Sure. Well, let's look. Now keep in mind, my search criteria was 180 days back. Okay. By the way, a little trick here that I actually didn't learn until a couple of years ago, after being in this business for decades, is these little arrows, see those little 2 arrows going back and forth, left and right? So if you click those arrows, it changes from a date that you put in to how many days back. And that's a lot easier than having to figure out what date was 6 months ago. Just a little trick there.
I love that.
Okay. Let's go back here. Now here's what I do. Let me show you what I do. Has anybody here used RPR or really likes RPR? Anybody familiar with it?
I've used it. I'm not a big fan.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan either. But if you want reports that have enormous amounts of information, use RPR. I'm not going to get into that here. Maybe somebody will teach a class on that someday. But the main reason I don't like RPR is I don't believe you can, or at least I've not figured out how to choose your own comps. The system goes and finds comps. You tell it how many maximum to use, but you don't get to decide which comps that they use.
Actually,
I'm sorry?
There's a way that you can do that.
One more time.
There is a way that you can do that.
Is there? Okay.
Yeah, but it's kind of confusing. I remember I've done it like twice and then I forgot how to do it. But there's a way like you can adjust your own comps. But I feel that it gives so much information that it's almost confusing to look at.
So here's what I do. By the way, let me show you a quick trick. Trick that I use. Does anybody use Snip on their Windows computers? For the report that I'm going to print out for the seller, I want to include at least a front view of the property in the report. And I didn't have one. You could have gotten it right from the MLS listing, right there. You could have just gone to photos, right click and save image. Now that's a historical photo. That's 3+ years old. Or if that's not available, you can go right to Google Maps and you're going to see, you click on the front view. Most homes in the valley are going to have this available. There's a thing called Snipping Tool. I have it on my bar down here. It looks like that. And I don't know if you can see it, but here we go. It pops up that window. You go new, and then move that out of the way, and you can just go like this and frame it and save it. You've got a picture of the property without having to go drive by it. Obviously, ideal would be that you took that picture yourself the first time you visited there with the seller, or at least did a drive-by of it. So, okay, here's where we go from here. This is what I do. Okay, we got 7 minutes left. I go to this tab right here to prepare a report for my seller. I'm going to have a printed report that I have there available to that seller. I don't go through that printed report at the listing appointment. It's just in the package and available, rarely ever reference it. But I want to have something to give them that kind of supports what I'm going to show them visually on my computer screen. And I'm a huge fan of this. A lot of you have heard me say when you're doing a listing appointment, you should have a separate large screen that you can tie into your laptop so you can sit at that seller's table, you and the husband and wife or whatnot, and show them these comps and see visually how their home compares to these comps. And many times by doing that, that seller will automatically come to the conclusion that their home is worth X, and sometimes a lot less than they had in their mind. Okay, so I go to this, I go to a CMA, I use all results. In this case, I'd use all results or selected. Sometimes I might have over here a lot of results, way more than 7, that I kind of want to keep in the background. And then here in the list, you can go in and pick and choose the ones you want. Come on, load. Identify the ones you want, and they go over here into the selected category. So you might have, like for here, this might be a good example. You might have 7 comps total, but you might select 3 or 4 to go into the report, okay? So I'm gonna go back to that CMA report, use all results in this case, and then I go full CMA, then I go through the process. Now I've already done this for the sake of time, so I'm gonna click out of this. And I'm going to go into menu right here, search CMA. If you don't know this little trick here, those stars in this menu of all the different things you can select in Armless, those stars mean that you either Armless did or you put them up here on this bar. So you don't have to open this menu window to get to these things. So you can see I have it up there, CMA. So I don't even know how to have to open that. I go to CMA. Now I've already saved this. I did this already. There it is, 4601 East Rains. It was spelled incorrectly, but don't worry, that doesn't print. And these are the things, you have all these choices. These are pages that you can include in this report. Notice I have a cover page, a map of the subject and comparable properties, street map versus satellite map, subject property description, side-by-side comparison, so you can see the subject property compared side-by-side with the comps. And then you go through this page by page by page. Where's the next button? Oh, where am I at here? I don't have a next button in the edit function, but you will if you do it straight from the thing. But for instance, here's the cover page. Okay, why is it not shown? Okay, this takes an enormous amount of time to load sometimes in the CMA thing, so be prepared for that. I typed in the title, comparative market analysis, John and Jane Doe, today's date, the Mark and Mel Team of eXp Realty, subject property. I typed in the address here. It'll fill in a minute. I uploaded that photo that I snipped from Google Maps. And then down here, you can add descriptions of the property, which I always do. Put all those descriptions in there that you know. Notice the check mark here is 3192 square feet, because we're going to base our analysis based on price per square foot. That's going to be our primary focus. We'll make adjustments from there. And then next step, there's that next step button. And then you have, like I said, this is really, really slow. I don't know, has anybody done this before, these comps, and had the same slowness? Because it's always slow for me. I'm not sure why. And there's the comps that we're using. I did this, by the way, I had done this with the plus or minus 10% square footage, that's why there's only 4 comps in here. So you can have whatever amount you want, whatever you're feeling comfortable with. And that's just where you choose what comps are going to be included. And then here, adjustments. Here, you can actually go over here and make dollar adjustments. I rarely do that, but you can do that. You can go in and make an adjustment for square footage if for these properties. Most of these properties are larger than our subject. So you might want to do a downward adjustment of $10, $12, $18,000, depending on the price per square foot.
So question, Mark.
Yeah.
I've never really done that. That's always confused me. So like on the first example there, that first comp, are you saying you would take, how would you adjust a dollar amount there? Can you give me an example?
Absolutely. I would take the average price per square foot of all the comps, which it's going to be later on in this report. You could have done it manually from just the list back there, or you could have done a quick CMA report, which is also an option that just instantly produces just a short CMA that shows you the average. Then what I do is I take 1/2 of the average price per square foot. Say it's $200 a square foot is the average price per square foot of the sold comps that are in my search criteria. I would take $100, so half of that, and I would multiply it by the difference in square footage between the subject property and the comparable. And if the comparable is more, and it's 200 square feet, 200 square feet, I would multiply that times $100, half of the average square footage, and then you've got a comp, and then you've got a adjustment of $20,000. So you bring that comp down $20,000, and
the
that's
average in there is like 165.
165 now. Okay, so
Yeah,
it would
so like
just use a round number.
$50, $60 a square foot for the difference would be totally right on.
But thanks, Mel. But now what I almost never do this. I rarely do these adjustments in the report because I want to have a dialogue with my seller and talk about these things, looking at comps. And that seller might say, well, there's 3 in there that sold for $640,000, but I think mine should be worth that. Then you say, well, but look at that. They have 250 square feet more than you have. And that's a huge factor. Price per square foot is a big factor. And then you just have a verbal conversation about, let me do a quick calculation for you. See, that usually means about $12,000, $15,000 difference, what a buyer will pay for that square footage. So that 640 price that we were looking at in the comps is going to probably be adjusted down when you get to it. And so as such, I'm leaning more toward, the 615, 620 range here, something like that, maybe 625 is where I'm going with this in my mind. But you can do that adjustment if you want, and it actually calculates it at the end of the report. And then this is kind of all the statistical stuff it gives you. It's not a ton of statistics. You can add a lot of graphs. At the very first page, you have the option to add a bunch of graphs. Mel loves graphs. She absolutely loves graphs. I'm not a graph person, so I don't include them. And then recommendation, this actually tells you, it actually automatically calculates the recommended the high, low, and the recommended list price. Come on. Come on. Crazy slow. I clicked on it. But anyway, I don't always include that page. I would only include that page if I had visited the property and I have a very, very firm range of potential list prices that I'm going to talk to the seller about. I would not do the recommendation page because it auto-generates. And you can change it, but if you've never seen the property, how do you know what to change it to? And it's not working there. So let me do this. And I create a PDF out of this, and then I save it and print it for the seller. And where's it at here? Let me get it open here. Where'd it go? Thought I had the screen open, but let's see. you can see what the report looks like. Here it is. Here's a PDF of it. Can you all see that?
Yeah.
That's the actual report as it would print out. That's the snipped photo that I threw in there, our contact information. It's got the map. As you can see, I only use the 4, in this example, I used the 4 properties that were within just 10% of square footage. But after I went back through them with you all here, I likely would have used, you know, gotten all those 7 and brought them into the report, possibly, with the exception of 1 or 2. And then it just lists the property addresses and says how far away they were and that the status is closed. There's another picture of the subject. And had I filled out all the property information like bedrooms and lot size and stuff, that would have been in the report there. And then here's the side-by-side comparison. These are the comps. I really like to stick, if I can, to 3 sold comps, if they make sense. Sometimes you need to use more, but I've got 4 here. That's what I'd really like to stick to when I'm really talking to my seller about how we're going to price this. Back in the old days, I never saw an appraisal. Appraisers never used more than 3 sold comps. They didn't use actives. They didn't use pendings unless they had to. If they found 3 sold comps, it was a 1-page affair and it had subject, comp 1, comp 2, comp 3, and that's all they had. And I'm kind of old school and I like that. Too many comps can get too confusing. So this is the physical report that you print out. And here's where now you're not looking at this when I'm doing a presentation. I'm not looking at this. This is a handout that I'm giving the seller that I'm going to leave the seller with just to show I'm giving them more value. Here's a report. I might pull it out and say, well, look here, here. But usually I'm doing it all on my computer screen, having conversations while we're looking at all those comps and verbally talking about the differences with upgrades, location, square footage, and talking about pluses and minuses. So we are 5 minutes over right now. Anybody have any questions?
Well, and I do want to say that they had already been given a comp for this house recently, which is why I was really curious about this specific property. And I will say that it was dramatically lower than what we've gathered.
Oh, go ahead and share. I don't care unless you have some reason.
They were told 475.
You're kidding.
Who was?
I'm not kidding.
I was told 475 for their listing.
Yeah, they were told 475 by another agent.
Oh, dude, you're gonna come in and hit a home run.
Who ran comps.
Well,
But
we'll buy it for 475 and let you resell it. How about
There you
that?
go. So Brady, and I'm assuming this, if I remember the story you told me, this agent never saw the home, so they had no idea what the
Yeah, I don't think they saw it.
So I'm thinking this property is going to be over the 600 mark. Like I said, 615, 620, 625. I see Joshua's nodding his head. Mel's nodding her head. That's probably where I'm at.
I say 625.
Yeah. Okay.
I've always just to kind of jump on top of that, the way I always approach this, because there is that range, right? I tell my clients, I said, we're looking at a range between 615 to 625, but we won't know till the day we go live, because if you get ready to go live and say you're talking 615, you get ready to go live and then something pops up at 625 that, for lack of a better phrase, is a piece of shit, then your home looks that much better. You're going to list at 630 or even higher. I've done that with clients and we've made 15, 20 over what they were planning on just because of what we leveraged going on in the neighborhood at that time too.
I agree.
So you can save yourself anytime you're talking to a client about a value. It's always good to give them a range, honestly, all the way up till like the last minute, like till the day you go live, because there's so many things that can change before you actually, hit that live button. So yeah, I would say right there in low 6s for sure.
And Mark always just picks the seller brain before we say a price. He says, what do you think out of all that we've analyzed? What's that make you think your property's worth?
Well, even before, when I'm doing a listing presentation, those of you that joined last week and we went through it, I'm a huge believer in this. and some people kind of really balk at it, is before I even look at a single comp, I build ourselves up in our listing presentation, talking about how we are good agents, we're a good fit, and how we're going to help you, and talk about that, build the rapport, get to know that seller, and develop all that. And I'm ready to show comps. I got my screen sitting on the table, and I said, before we go ahead and look at comps, just curious, you have an idea in your mind what you think this home will sell for. And if that seller gives you a number that you think is a good number, that you think you should list it at, or pretty close to that, you don't have to show them a single comp.
I agree, let's do it.
Yeah. I said, well, you know what? That's good news. We've come to the same conclusion. And you might even say, well, we think you might get a little bit more. Instead of the 610 that you just said, Mr. Seller, I think you might be as high as 620, 625. You know, we can take the time, and I can go through these comps, and I can show you exactly how we came to that conclusion. But if you're comfortable with that number, you know, we could move ahead right now and not go through all that time and trouble. And I think the last year, I think every time I did that, not once did the seller want to look at the comps. Now, I left them this report. They had this report. They had it, you know, as when I left the listing presentation, they had that, so they can reference that. Huge savings of time. So the only time I absolutely go to the comps and visually show the seller the comps is if there's a discrepancy, if the seller's thinking their home is worth way too much. And of late, most sellers in our experience are giving us a number right at its value, or maybe a little bit lower than its value in today's market. That's what I think we're seeing more than the opposite.
Yeah, there's a little bit of pushback everybody's hearing with appraisers. They're scared right now.
Yeah.
They don't know which way it's going, even though indicators say it's still going up because of the lack of the properties. Just look at, and I, like everybody, I can't stand Zillow, but let me tell you, appraisers look at it. They look at the market. If you go on Zillow and you pull up this property address, you'll see statistics. You'll see this estimate, which is really low. It's really off. It says 575. But you'll see a range, which the appraisers will look at, which is 529 to 627. You'll see the trend that was 7% up in this neighborhood and is estimated to be 7% for the next year. Those are comforting thoughts for appraisers, and it makes you more solid in knowing your estimated, you know, listing price.
By the way, if I were this preparation that I just went through in just a little more than an hour, on average, when I'm doing it, it probably takes me 2 to 2.5 hours. Really, in real life, because I want to go in there. And I want to know. I want to know about all the comps in the immediate area that they might bring up. What about that one that sold over here? I want to know that information. I investigate a whole lot more than I did here. And I take a whole lot more time. So I'm really knowledgeable.
Kind of to jump on top of that, when you're appraising and you're having a tough time finding comps, do you prefer to go further out in regards to location, or do you prefer to go further back in time?
Yes. Well, actually, I think going further back in time is, in my opinion, Mel can chime in here when I'm done if she has a different opinion, since she appraised for 20 plus years. Going back in time, I try to avoid that.
Yeah.
Almost at all costs. Go back 6 months. I would go to a slightly wider range of square footage. Amenities like using a home without a pool, comping it with a subject that has a pool, and then widening the range a little bit. Like right here, I was in Power Ranch. I was no more than 3/4 of a mile from this. In fact, most of them were probably a half a mile from the subject. You could do that 1 mile radius and get a lot more comps.
Yeah.
Jeff says, what are appraisers typically giving for pools? Anybody have a...
Well, let me tell you, the maximum, they don't like to go over 25% of an adjustment. So like if you say, wow, this pool area, you talk to the seller, and they spent 60, 70,000, maybe 80,000 on it, you know? It's really nice. And so you've got to just do it a little adjustment. And if 40,000 is 25% of the list price, you're fine.
I just had an appraisal done on that home that we're buying out in Legacy. Has $100,000 pool.
Wow.
7 pumps, 3 filters, a built-in spa, negative edge, all these water features, 50,000 gallons. And he ran comps. He went a year back for 1 comp, which pissed me off. And he gave the adjustment for the pool $15,000.
Holy cool.
That's insane.
Bad. That's bad.
Yeah, and I think that's really the most I've seen personally. I just generally tell people, I said, if you have a decent pool, it's 10,000. If you have a really, really nice pool, 15,000. That's kind of what I've been noticing, but I wish they would be more to what you said, Mel, because we came back.
What was the price range of that?
So the house was listed at 450. We got it under contract for 435. Has the biggest lot in the neighborhood, has a $100,000 pool, overlooks the golf course. And he comes in and appraises at 432.
Wow. That's
how they shouldn't be in the appraisal business.
I should have stayed in the appraiser. They need more experienced appraisers. Unfortunately, they've got scared newer appraisers right now.
Well, I tell you this too, I wouldn't want to be an appraiser right now. I mean, this market is crazy. You know, it's so unpredictable that, like, we're listing a houses today that's going to be, I have 2 listings going out in Queen Creek today. If you guys have buyers, bring them to me. But we're listing one 40,000 over its closest comp.
How do you, can you fight an appraisal, guys? I mean, what if I'm about to list a house on, well, I'm going Monday to take pictures and I got to do the comps, all that. I do have a friend who helped me with my CMA for that. But I want to be prepared. But my question is, what happens? Do you piss them off? What if you really do believe that your comps are higher? Do you just say, no, I don't agree? And then how do you try to change it?
You can contest the appraisal through the lender. You just go to the lender and say, hey, we don't think this is an accurate appraisal. We want to contest it. And if I'm not mistaken, somebody correct me, that you might be able to get them to have another appraiser go out and appraise it, but the buyer client is probably gonna have to pay for that, or somebody's gonna have to pay for it.
For a second appraisal.
Yeah, that second appraisal. But that's it. That circumstance, Joshua, that you just described, that home with an amazing pool, almost the exact same thing happened to me. It was at least $100,000 backyard, pool, ramada, swim up bar, and all that. Plus, this house had a huge, separate, fully detached RV garage with an attached 2-car garage, in addition to the original, the garage, the 3-car garage on the house. The appraiser gave us $4,000 for the extra 2 garages. It would have cost $70,000 to $80,000 to build that garage. The appraiser gave us what, $8,000 total, and gave us I believe it was $20,000 or $25,000 for the pool in the backyard. So very similar thing, and we did contest that. Interestingly enough, I was working with the buyer in that circumstance. And I helped the selling agent or the listing agent contest that appraisal, because the seller was saying, it was working in the favor of my buyer. We went there and said, okay, you guys want to lower the price down to, I think it was $475 list price, $430 the appraisal, something like that. Almost the same numbers you're talking about. And we did contest it, and we got the appraisal back up, not all the way to the full list price, but we got it to a dollar amount where the buyer was okay and the seller was okay. I think about 8,000 or 10,000 less than the original offer price. Any other questions?
Thanks, Mark.
Mark, that was amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Very good.
Jeff, what's the
That was
best?
awesome.
Thank you so much, guys. What's the
Have a good weekend.